This lesson is titled Civil War, Part 1 of 3. The presidential projects that we have been working on so far have gotten us up to the year 1858 in this course. This year was a wild one, especially because of the Lincoln-Douglas debates. This all came about because of the election for the Illinois Senate seat. In one corner, we have Stephen A. Douglas, a Democrat who had twice been elected senator. In the other corner, we have Abraham Lincoln, a self-educated man who had only been elected to Congress for one term in 1846. The main topic of debate at this time was slavery. Neither Lincoln nor Douglas were in favor of slavery, but they couldn't decide on how to stop it. Douglas liked the idea of popular sovereignty, and that was an idea that said that actual residents of territories should be able to decide by voting whether or not slavery would be allowed in the territory. Lincoln knew that slavery was immoral, but thought the only way it could be gone if there was an amendment to the Constitution. Lincoln countered Douglas's debate about popular sovereignty by looking back to the Dred Scott decision. Lincoln asked Douglas if settlers of a territory could vote to exclude slavery before the territory became a state. The answer to Lincoln's question was no, and it really showed people how popular sovereignty was a poor policy. In the end, Douglas won the seat, but many saw Lincoln as a good presidential candidate for the election in 1860. The idea of slavery led to many challenging issues and events during our nation's history. One such event occurred on October 16, 1859. On this day, John Brown, who was a famous abolitionist, or person who wanted to see the end of slavery, tried to get a slave rebellion assembled at Harper's Ferry, Virginia. The slave rebellion was stopped, and Brown was tried and hung. This event started to divide the North and the South, as the North was not happy about the execution, and in the South, people started to assault white people with anti-slavery views.
We went to Harper's Ferry to find out what abolitionist John Brown was thinking when he attacked the federal arsenal in October of 1859.
We can summarize John Brown in one word: weapons. We had 100,000 weapons, rifles and muskets, stored here in arsenals at Harper's Ferry.
Brown believed he'd spark a slave rebellion.
John Brown really had this well planned. He expected to get into Harper's Ferry, get out, take the weapons with him. He expected to have a lot of help. There were nearly 18,000 slaves in a 6-county area surrounding this town, so he did expect slaves to come and join him, and that would be his principal labor source. Unfortunately, he would be trapped. The militia would surround him before any slaves arrived on the scene.
Brown and his collaborators barricaded themselves inside the fire engine building. When the Marines, under the command of Robert E. Lee, stormed the building, he was captured. He was hanged 2 months later, but his bold ventures set off alarm bells throughout the South.
There's absolutely no doubt that John Brown is a spark. In fact, you might even call him a huge burning log that's thrown right into the powder keg, and it explodes. And so there's no doubt that he sent us on the road to war.
As expected, in the election of 1860, the Republicans selected Lincoln as their candidate. The election had 4 different figures going at it, with Lincoln, Douglas, who was chosen by the Northern Democrats, John C. Breckinridge of Kentucky was chosen by the Southern Democrats, and John Bell. John Bell was selected by the Southern Whigs, who felt that they could support neither the Democratic or the Republican Party. So they actually formed their own Constitutional Union Party. Lincoln ended up beating all 3 candidates, and that victory led to a deep feeling of anger in the South. If we look at this map, we can see the electoral votes of all the candidates during the election of 1860. Lincoln received 180 electoral votes, almost all of them coming from the North, and some from Oregon and California on the West Coast. Douglas received 12 electoral votes, those coming from Missouri and New Jersey, while Breckinridge got 72 electoral votes from the South and Maryland and Delaware, while Bell received 39 electoral votes, those coming from Tennessee, Kentucky, and Virginia. The reason that the South was so mad after the election is because they felt they had lost their political voice in the national movement. As a response to this feeling of isolation, the first state to secede from the Union was South Carolina on December 20th, 1860. Mississippi, Florida, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and Texas followed suit. These states that had removed themselves from the Union met in February of 1861 and formed the Confederate States of America, or we know it as the Confederacy. They developed a constitution that was close to the one of the U.S., but had a few big differences. The new Constitution of the Confederacy protected and recognized slavery in the new territories. The new Confederacy needed a president, and they chose Senator Jefferson Davis of Mississippi to be the new president of the Confederacy.